Welcome to Blake Street Banter, where one of us knows what the word banter means. The other two are along for the ride. I am here with Tyler. Tyler, say what's up.
How's it going, guys?
And we are here with the Hartford Yard Goats shortstop / utility player / raker, Taylor Snyder. He's here with us. Taylor, how you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on, boys.
Yeah, excited to just talk ball with you. Let's get right into it. So you were minor league player of the week a few weeks ago. What was it like hitting like 6 bombs, 20 RBIs, a few walk-off hits? What was that week like for you? And like what was the zone for you when you're hitting?
Oh, it was fantastic. I've been working on some new things this year, like approach wise, and I knew there was going to be a little lag, having not played last year and being at a new level and things like that. But for it to all kind of start clicking and coming together for 1 week, it was fantastic. I felt like when you get into that zone like that, it just feels like everything is kind of just going your way. You know, you're getting the pitches that you want. It seems like every at bat, a pitcher's throwing you a pitch that you're looking for, and you're just not missing it. It's one of the sweetest feelings ever, man, because you feel unstoppable for like a little second, because baseball is so freaking hard and can humble you so quick. But like when you get into that little zone for a minute where you try not to acknowledge it while it's happening, you try not to acknowledge that, like, dang, this is sick, because you don't want to like jinx it or anything. But you know, when you finish and you get done with that week and you can look back and be like, wow, that was special. I was definitely in like a little flow state right there.
Well, and beyond that week, I mean, this has just been a really solid year for you. I think career best numbers in a lot of areas. But like you said, coming off of the lag with no ball last year, like what was the last year like for you, and what were you doing to really make sure you were ready to come in and play ball this year at AA?
I was doing everything I could, honestly. Back home in Utah, it wasn't crazy shut down. I was able to get onto a field pretty much whenever I wanted. I had a facility that I could lift in. I have a few buddies back home who are pitching or catching or in professional baseball or college. And, you know, we tried to line up live at bats off of each other as much as possible.
That's cool.
I'm really good friends with Joe Barlow, who actually just made his debut. And he lives with Luis Gonzalez in Scottsdale. So I was able to make a couple trips out there, and Luis has a sweet setup at his house that we were able to get some legit training in. I mean, you just got to do whatever you can in that situation. It sucked. Obviously not what any of us wanted, but I mean, you made the best of it. I camped like crazy. I boated like crazy, which I've never been able to really do. Spent a lot of time with my friends and family, which was fantastic. And it kind of just made that itch to play a little bit stronger, which, you know, is some silver lining, I guess.
Yeah, kind of found your love for the game almost again.
Yeah, because I mean, you go home for the off season typically, and you know, you take a month off. Usually, most guys like myself take like a month off of everything, and you kind of just let your body recoup and your mind recover, and then you kind of start getting back into it. But to have that whole, I don't know what it ended up being, 15 months or whatever the heck it was.
It feels like 5 years.
Yeah. Yeah. It was either for everybody. I think I can speak for everybody. It was either you were really going to find out how much you love it, or you were really going to figure out how ready you are to be done, which, you know, there were a lot of guys that did decide that. So
yeah, no, it's cool that you figured it out and like stuck with it. So you have this little hiccup, like timing mechanism with your hitting. Have you always had that, or is that something you worked on in your free time?
No, it's something that I started to figure out. I actually kind of started to understand it a little bit when I was in Lancaster in 2019 in high A.
Mm-hmm.
I went home for the All-Star break and really broke it down with my dad. I wasn't hitting very well that first half, kind of struggling. And we kind of started to understand this little hitch in my timing mechanism with like my leg kick and my pitch recognition. And I came back from that All-Star break and played really well the second half there. And I kind of started to think like, okay, yeah, that piece that I kind of figured out is real, you know, because baseball is so hard that like you might figure something out and it works for a week or it works for 2 weeks. And then it kind of seems like it doesn't work anymore. It's the craziest thing, but it kind of worked for me for, you know, the remainder of the season for the most part. And I was like, you know what, that feels really good. So it sucked coming back into spring training that next year. And I felt like I was doing that same thing, trying to get back in that same groove. And it was kind of there, you know, it was kind of like, okay, sweet. This is an actual thing. This little mechanism that I found is an actual thing that works. And then obviously we get banged. And now I'm like, oh, great. I got to wait a whole nother year to really test this out. So it's interesting. It's a little hiccup with my leg kick and my timing of my leg kick and having like a little window for my pitch recognition. And that's really all it is.
Do you think that those like second half adjustments in 2019, that's been the big reason for for the year you're having right now, that you really have been able to translate that over?
Yeah, I honestly do. It's like, so I got a lot taller in my stance. I almost stand straight up. My hands are pretty high, and compared to a lot of other players. And then I have that leg kick. And for me, like the high stance and everything was simply just, that's comfortable for me. I feel super athletic up there. I feel like I can make my best move on the ball from up there. But yeah, it kind of opened up. I started to understand, crazy enough, that I made it as far as I did with, it almost felt like before I did this, I was like, I needed to start my swing to be on time with 95. And then I had to recognize where the ball was and try to meet the plane, like all in that little window. And
Right.
It was it was impossible. Now that I look back at it, I'm like, oh my gosh, how did I get to where I was hitting like that? It was the craziest like light bulb moment. And so then I kind of started to be able to switch to like, okay, I need to get my body in position to fire. Then I recognize and then I fire. It was seriously like the light bulb moment of my career so far, you know. And I've kind of just really tried to just like hold on to that. And I would for sure say that little click that I found, that All-Star break in 19, has a lot to do with what I've been able to do this year so far.
Yeah, I would say it's paying off. 900 OPS, 14 homers. Like you're doing really well with that. That's kind of cool. Just it's always fun for me to hear those stories, like what's the little thing that you adjusted to be successful, like almost in every part of life, especially ball players. Like it's literally just that little hiccup and it changed your entire mentality and ability to hit the ball. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's sweet.
So you mentioned your dad, who is a former ball player, Corey Snyder. Word on the street is he has a cannon. Is that true?
Yeah, he had a rocket arm. I have been able to meet, you know, a lot of teammates and coaches and things like that were able to experience him playing. And I hear stories of, you know, in college, he played shortstop, and by the second inning, all the scouts behind that were gunning the pitcher would have moved over to first base to gun my dad's throws across the diamond. Just stuff like that, you know, that tells me that the dude had a hose. And he obviously moved to right field, and don't quote me on this, but I think he led the league in throw out assists for a couple years there in the big league. So yeah, he had it. And even he's starting to slow down a little bit now, but and don't tell him I said that, but he even, back a couple years, if I needed some BP, like some gas, he could ramp it up, and he could probably still throw me at 55. He could probably still throw me like 86, 87 and kind of just rip it in there.
That's awesome. Would you say like growing up around the majors and stuff helped you kind of transition and get ready for this minor league journey of yours?
Yeah, for sure. So he actually like finished playing around the time that I was born. So I wasn't able to like be around his career a whole lot per se, but he got back into minor league coaching. I can't remember the year, but when I was in like junior high school, he coached for about 6 years in the minor leagues, which, is a pivotal learning moment for a baseball player at that age. And so I was able to spend a lot of time during my summers with him at whatever affiliate he was at. And yeah, it gave me a super unique perspective on, the dream that I had that I was pursuing and was going to pursue in the future. Kind of gave me like a little insight on what it's like and what you got to do and what you got to be prepared for and things like that. So I was really lucky.
Would you say that your dad was your primary motivator just throughout your journey and currently? Who is your primary motivator?
I mean, my dad's definitely one of them for sure. My mom has always kind of been like my rock in the whole thing, in the sense of baseball comes with a lot of struggles. You fail a lot, and my mom for my whole life really has been the person that I've been able to go to in those times, and she gives me confidence and support and things like that. As to where my dad is, my dad's funny. He just like, when I'm struggling, he's just like, dude, just don't struggle. Like it's not that it's not that hard. I did it. I just didn't struggle. And I'm like, well, yeah, sure.
Thanks, Pops.
So he definitely hit you with
he
a lot of that tough love. He's the tough lover.
He did, for sure. He did, which I needed. He was able to build a lot of confidence in me, but it was always like that, tough. He'd been there, he's done it, and he wants me to do it, and he thinks I'm good enough to do it. So he definitely has that edge to push me a little more than like my mom is my support system.
Are there certain nights you go talk to one of them before the other? Like you just tonight's a mom conversation night, dad's tomorrow type
for
thing?
Sure. For sure. That's yeah.
You've had quite a journey so far. Like you started at JUCO to NCAA baseball, a little stint in Australia. Again, going all over, kind of again building up for this minor league thing. I want to go back to high school. Like when you were drafted by the Mariners, what was that like? How did you decide not to go into the system with them? And then JUCO, like what was kind of that decision making for you, and how did you get to those finals choices?
Yeah, so I was drafted by the Mariners out of my senior year of high school, which was exciting as heck. Like
I couldn't imagine.
that's every kid's dream. Yeah, I was jacked. My brother actually was at the JUCO that I ended up playing at, and he also got drafted that same year by the same team a couple of rounds later. So for us both to get called that year by the same team was beyond exciting. It was like my whole family was so jacked up. But we both, my brother at that time had accepted a pretty sweet scholarship to go play at BYU, and it was pretty late in the draft. We were selected in like the 30s, and that's not really the best for everybody. Obviously some situations are different, but it wasn't the best situation for me to accept that late of a draft that early. So at that point, my plan was, and what me and my dad had discussed was, well, let's just go to a JUCO and have a good year, and hopefully get called sooner in the draft, which seemed like a good idea. But I ended up going to my JUCO, and I kind of went through some struggles there, and was not able to put up the numbers at my JUCO to get signed out of there. So then I ended up going to a D2 that I personally had never heard of before going there.
Never heard of Pueblo?
I had never heard of Pueblo. And I kind of just, at that point in my career, that's where it led me. And that place, I love Pueblo to death now. That place will always have a piece in my heart because it kind of resurrected my career a little bit. And was able to play well there and get my name called where I wanted it and get into pro ball. Because ultimately the goal for me and my brother, at least growing up with my dad, was college ball was never talked about. Like, we didn't ever,
I can see that.
Oh, what's your dream university? You know, where do you want to play at BYU? Do you want to play at Utah? Do you want to go out of, like, that was never really in the conversation. It was always just like the ultimate goal of getting to pro ball as fast as possible.
That's wild.
Which is very different. As I'm getting older, I'm understanding that that's very different than what everyone else typically does. Like, playing at a big D1 university was obviously, as a kid, it sounded cool, but it was never like a huge dream of mine. So it resulted in a pretty unique path.
Did playing in Pueblo, did that help to connect you with the Rockies? Obviously you hit well there. But do you think that Colorado connection really drew their eyes to you?
I would like to think so. Yeah. My head coach there, Stan Sanchez, he knew some people in the Rockies system, in their scouting system. And I'm sure that those two things went hand in hand.
Okay. And then you mentioned you love Pueblo, so this kind of answers that question. And then you also spent some time in Grand Junction. So in those years, did you really develop kind of this love and connection with Colorado?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, when I just being in Pueblo, I loved the people I was with, the teammates, the coaches. The program out there was the most ideal situation for me at that time. And then I went to Grand Junction, which was kind of funny actually, because that's where Colorado Mesa plays, and Mesa and Pueblo are like the Red Sox and Yankees in the 90s. Like those two schools, that's such a fun rivalry. So then I end up, going from playing at Pueblo to the next week I'm playing where Colorado Mesa is and playing for Grand Junction. It was funny that the first little bit there, I was getting haggled by some fans, just saying like two weeks ago when you were playing for Pueblo, we hated you, but now you're here with us and we like you. So, so yeah, I definitely developed a little love for Colorado.
Did any love get transferred to Australia? What was that like, going down to Auckland and playing for the Tuataras? Like, how?
The Tuatara, yeah. That was a sweet experience. First of all, I'll start out by saying that I had just finished up the year. What year was that? The end of 18.
Mm-hmm.
And just finished up the season, and it's a long season. It's a grind, and I'm excited to go home, have some time off. And it was like the second or third to last day of the season. My dad calls me and he goes, "Hey," because at the time he was my acting agent, right? And he calls me and goes, "Hey, a team in New Zealand just got a hold of me and they want you to come play out there for winter ball." And I'm thinking, oh man, I just finished playing a season and now I'm going to go spend my,
Dad.
But then I'm like, I thought about it and I'm like, you know what? I definitely didn't get, my season didn't go quite how I planned. I didn't get as many at bats as I had hoped. So I'm going to go play in Australia and New Zealand all winter. It's going to be hot. I'm not going to have to go into the snow. Yeah, let's do it. And it ended up being awesome. It ended up being the sweetest experience because it was so different than what professional baseball is over here, in the sense of like, there's on my team specifically, we had a handful of minor leaguers, and then just a bunch of like older Australian and New Zealand guys that have been around the game forever.
Mhm.
And for me, I was excited to go over there and kind of just like try to work on some things without the enormous stress of an organization, watching you I knew they were paying attention, but I wanted to go over there and like really try to figure some things out, and ultimately just try to have a blast, which is exactly what we did over there. And it was fantastic.
Was there anything like culturally about the game that like when you got there and then when you came back that took this adjustment, like things that were you're on the field or in the clubhouse and you're just like, that's different from what I know?
Nothing crazy, honestly.
Okay.
That's the sweet thing about baseball, is it's a universal language, right? Like, it's
Mhm.
pretty much the same game wherever you are in the world. The one thing that I did think was unique was, you go from being over here in the minor leagues where everyone just throws gas, like 7 out of 10 guys on a team, throw 97 to 95 to 100 or whatever.
Mhm.
And that's the thing over here. It's Powerball. They want the guys that throw as hard as they can. And then over there, in Australia, you had a lot of like older, like mid 30s players that had maybe had some minor league time or had just played in Australia their whole careers. And they're these older guys that were 88 to 91, and they just pitch. They throw 4 pitches for strikes whenever they want, and they hit the corners, and they do this. And so that was different. That was probably the main thing that I was like, oh, this is different than what I've been doing the last few years.
Little Hendrix, like, some reason when I think of the Australian league, I think of like old man softball rules. Like, as if there's a home run, they're like chugging beers, or like when you get to first base, you got to do a quick shot or something. Aussie rules baseball.
Yeah, it sounds. I mean, the fans definitely are doing that for sure. They're doing that for us.
They're still professional in between the lines. There we go.
For sure.
That's awesome.
That's awesome. All right, let's end it with this. I appreciate you spending your time here. So let's end with some softball questions here. You drive a Subaru. Are you familiar with the Subaru strike zone that is Colorado Rockies? And does your Subaru have a strike zone?
That's funny. How'd you find that? I do. I drive
Go ahead.
a Subaru WRX, and if you ask anybody that's close to me, that is my baby. I freaking love that car, but it does not have a strike zone.
No strike zone. Are you familiar with the Subaru strike zone?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, you tune into the Rockies, you hear it like 50 times a night.
Yeah, for sure.
So no strike zone, but you got your Subaru, you got your baby. Yeah, we do our research over here. We just looked at your Instagram and saw it.
Oh, I guess it is on there quite a bit.
Yeah.
Touche.
Yeah. You had an off day the other night. You looked like, again, Instagram research. Again, I don't stalk you. I was just doing research. Saw you at a Red Sox game. Is there anything you want to tell us?
No, I've always wanted to go to Fenway. My girlfriend was in town and she wanted to go see Boston, and I'm like, it's a win-win. Let's go to Fenway. Let's go watch a game.
Yeah, that was sweet. I toured it probably 3 years ago, but it's still on my list to go watch a game. Is it as historical, like watching a game? Like, is it everything you wanted it to be?
Yeah, it's got a feel. It definitely has a feel. And where we were sitting are the original seats, that have been there forever, and they're definitely uncomfortable, but you don't mind because you just think, man, this is all part of it, and it's very sweet.
Yeah.
Well, and then one more quick baseball question. Watching that stacked Red Sox lineup, like obviously everyone in that lineup kind of stands out, but is there one guy in that lineup you're really watching and trying to like learn something from?
I mean, obviously JD, That guy is one of the best hitters in the game.
Incredible.
Definitely want to watch him a little closer. I pay attention to Dahlbeck a little bit just because I played against him in low A. So it's always cool to see guys that you played against and, you know, we're bumping shoulders with on the base paths and stuff like that, competing at the big league level. So I definitely watch him. But other than that, Devers, I could go to every single guy in that lineup and say they're special to watch. Those guys are really good.
Yeah, Devers just handles heat. Like that guy, I think I've seen he hit a few homers off of 101, 102 mile an hour pitches. Like I don't understand that, but
yeah, he just gets the barrel to it, man. It's crazy.
Last question. Speaking of barrels, your home run, I think of about a week ago, you kissed the bat in that at bat, which like why? And then literally 3 pitches later, you went yard for the game-winning home run. It ended up being. What are you doing, man? Why are you kissing the barrel?
Well, actually, so a lot of baseball players will do this where if you foul a ball back, you just miss it, and it clips the barrel. It creates this awesome smell of like burning wood.
Really?
And so you just like clip it, and it just right on the spot that it clipped is like this sweet smell. And so I usually always, when I clip it like that, I always just like smell it and maybe give my bat a little kiss and just, you know, let's go to war right here.
That's awesome. I did not know anything about that smell piece, and I don't think I'll ever. But that's cool. That's awesome.
It's the best. It's like if I could get like candles made up of that smell, I would they'd be all over my house.
We got to get someone on that. Someone's got to make that a product. If they can create that smell, that's got to be done.
Hey, Yankee candle.
Oh, they've got to be able to, right?
Yeah, I mean, they can make anything. We'll figure it out, right? Well, I appreciate you, Taylor, for being here, talking with us, getting to know more about you and your journey. And we will be watching. Like this, what you've been doing is exciting, and I know it's going to continue and just keep doing things. And we'll see you soon.
Yeah, thanks for your time, Taylor.
I really appreciate that, boys. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you for tuning in. Find more content at BlakeStreetBanter.com.